Welcome into episode 213 of the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball and recruiting podcast on the growing KSR Podcast Network. The Sources Say podcast is presented by our good friends at Justice Dental. You can make an appointment at one of two Lexington locations. That's on Wellington Way and Blazer Parkway. Now is a great time to schedule your dental cleaning. Remember that regular dental appointments are important for your overall health. You can learn more and make an appointment at justicedental.com. Dr. Justice and Dr. Thompson look forward to seeing you soon. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very happy to be joined in person. This is our first live show with somebody else in person with us. Zack of Kentucky Sports Radio. We had him on our little just audio only edition of the kind of impromptu breaking news edition of the Sources Say podcast at Big Blue Madness when Aaron Bradshaw committed, but now we are down in Birmingham, Alabama together for the SEC Media Days, which the women were today and then the men are tomorrow. Zack, thanks for joining me, man.
Jack, it's nice to be here in person with you. We won't have any delay or anything. It'll just be some back and forth conversation. So hopefully some good vibes today with our what episode are we? 213 here. I'm reading off Jack's script. I'm cheating a little bit. But yeah, so we're down here in Birmingham today, SEC Media Day. We started with the women's team, talked to Kyra Elsie, Blair Green, Jada Walker. Got some good, solid information for them, I guess. Not much that we didn't already know from last week's Media Day at UK, but overall it's fun. We got men tomorrow, so it's busy right now. Basketball's here.
I guess a couple notes from Media Day today. A couple big things. A lot of talk about the departure of Ryan Howard from Kyra Elsie. Very clearly a message that they're trying to point through with the team that, look, we have 10 new faces, 15 players on the roster. She said that we're going to have 10 rotation players this year. If you can earn your spot in or you can get it taken away. There's no promises, no, minutes given, no shots promised, none of that stuff. Very clearly you got to earn your way with Ryan Howard here gone. A clearly a big culture change, I think, going into this offseason. A couple other notes. Talked about Maddie Shear, how she has the it factor. I thought that was a pretty cool thing that we heard from Kyra Elsie today as well. Any other notes of substance that you want to address before we get into the other stuff?
Yeah, I thought the Maddie Shear comment was interesting just because I feel like a lot of people are kind of hyping her up. Her and Nia Russell, the South Carolina transfer, is maybe the two go-to girls for this team this year. It was nice to see Blair Green back and smiling and fully healthy and talking about how she was winning the three-point contest and just kind of her rehab and all that stuff. Not too many other notes other than that. They have 15 players this year as opposed to having like 6 healthy players at one point last year. So like Jack said, the 10-player rotation will be a welcome sight at this point, even if it's a bunch of freshmen and not a all-American player like Ryan Howard. So there will definitely be a bit of a rebuilding period or rebuilding transition period, I guess you could say, in my opinion. So we'll see how long that actually lasts. But it's going to be a fun year. They will be a very fun team. I'm convinced of that.
Tomorrow is the men SEC Media Day with John Calipari, Oscar Tshiebwe, and I believe, was it Xavier Wheeler was the other... I believe it's Xavier Wheeler, but let's just pretend like it is, and if we're wrong, then who cares? How excited are you to hear from those three tomorrow?
I'm just very interested to see what Oscar Tshiebwe's foot looks like, if there's going to be a boot on it or not. Honestly, other than that, I'm just kind of... Knee. Sorry.
Brace, knee, same thing.
Knee. Yeah, so I want to see kind of how he's waltzing about, and if it looks any better. I'm not sure if he will or not from that... I guess Big Blue Madness was only 3 or 4 days ago now, so I'm not sure how much stuff we'll be able to learn from them, but I'm definitely very excited to hear Cal's coach speak and see if we can get probably a couple of interesting quotes out of him. I'm sure we will. He loves to drop some bombs, if you will.
I don't understand kind of the outrage and just this shock value, I guess, of Oscar's injury and kind of the backlash that happened at Big Blue Madness, Zach. I thought it was really fascinating that, everybody just kind of talked, oh my God, he limped his way up the stairs and couldn't take 2 steps and only could have the microphone in his hand. I thought that part was fascinating considering he had just had surgery the day before. So I don't understand why there was so much... just concern about... I mean, look, he had knee surgery the day before Big Blue Madness. That was day 2 of him, just leaving the hospital and having surgery. I was there. I interviewed Ugonna Kingsley on Yenzo on Thursday morning, and he clearly had just gotten back from the surgery. Loopy was in crutches, like clearly, clearly somebody that had just walked out of surgery. So I was expecting exactly what we saw, that he was just, inching his way back, and no change in terms of his status update, that he will be playing for the season opener. I think he'll probably miss the first exhibition game. Clearly something they're going to be delicate with. But again, remember that at Pro Day, when there were 50 NBA scouts in attendance, Oscar Tshiebwe was playing on that hurt knee and looked tremendous, looked better than he was last year in terms of mobility, how well he was moving up and down the floor. So I don't know why there's this kind of just all these questions about his health and what he can be moving forward and all that. I think he's going to be just fine. This is a par for the course. He looked exactly the way I expected him to look at Big Blue Madness. He introduced his coach, and Cal came out and did the drop the mic thing and blah blah blah. Everything is according to plan. I have no concerns, Zach. I'm not sure what your thoughts are as well.
Well, I'd say if Big Blue Madness wasn't timed out how it was timed out, no one probably would have even known that this had happened, because Cal kind of teased it at the beginning. And I think if this were just something that had happened, maybe in July, they don't even talk about it at all and just let it continue to go by, type of thing. So it's always going to cause concerns with fans when the National Player of the Year is,
which is fair,
in some sort of brace, even if he was just coming off the day off surgery, and that's kind of what he should be doing, is limping around in a brace. So as far as we know, it's nothing serious, and he's supposed to play for the regular season. So if we want to trust everything that is out there, he should be perfectly fine. So, but like I said, it's just always, you don't like seeing your best player limping around up there, especially when they're doing the big practice, reveal, the whole Big Blue Madness thing. So, but yes, obviously, ideally, he's perfectly fine. He just had the surgery, and everything should be according to plan.
Yeah, like I said on last week's show, it was just a knee scope, so they're just looking, a little bit of irritation. They looked in there to see, just to double and triple check that everything's good. Get a little cleanup procedure done. So as far as that is concerned, everything is just fine. Nothing has changed. I know there was some one of these questions, and in fact, make sure if you want to get your questions answered, make sure you leave them in the chat. We're excited to talk to you guys tonight. Always love this format. TIM said any news on Oscar's progress. So nothing to speak of negatively in terms of Oscar. Everything is looking great. He is expected back sooner rather than later. Don't expect him in the blue-white game. Obviously, more opportunities to see Ugonna Kingsley on Yenso, which we'll talk a little bit about some of the other stuff we saw at Big Blue Madness, kind of push recruiting to the tail end of that, because obviously a big part of that was recruiting. But I don't think Ugonna caught the memo of it's going to be a full court layup line, Zach. Nobody tried in the scrimmage. It was a very low-key, let's just go out here and have fun. He was trying pretty hard. I personally enjoyed seeing him for the first time with my own two eyes outside of a pro day setting. I like the kid. I think he's going to play some this year. A lot to like. I love his personality. We had a sit down with him on Thursday that I absolutely loved. Just a lot of personality and just a high character kid. Heard nothing but positive things about his maturity and what he brings to the table. But I did think it was funny that he was the only player on the floor trying, Zach.
Yeah, you definitely didn't get the memo of how Big Blue Madness has been going over the last few years. But, he actually did make, most of the time when we were up there, we were just kind of, doing the live blog, kind of paying attention to the computers. But Ugonna would make you actually watch what was going on, because it wasn't just going to be a layup line dunk routine with him. So it was nice to see him actually go. Honestly, I bet they probably didn't tell him that they're not supposed to go. He probably just thought that he was actually supposed to go out there and play that hard. So I liked seeing that. If he's here next year, I bet you he doesn't. So it's just kind of a waltz through type deal for most of them. But I do like when you see a freshman, especially a guy like him who just got here, is like, I don't care. I'm going to come out and really try and play and show myself. So especially with Oscar, that's what people want to see too. So I'm sure he knows that, and he knows that he's could potentially have a decent sized role on this team sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I asked him on Thursday, about what his role is going to be, what he's expecting this year. He said, look, I just want to help the team however I can. I'm a shot blocker. He told me that he is the best shot blocker. He was the best shot blocker in high school basketball last season, and now he's planning on being the best shot blocker in college basketball moving forward this season. I don't know if he's going to be able to be that this quickly, I don't believe, but at least by the time he's done at Kentucky, Zach, he made it very clear that that's a goal of his, to be the best defender, be in the running for, SEC Defensive Player of the Year, maybe National Defensive Player of the Year, whatever. I love just that mindset of, look, I know I'm a little bit raw offensively. I know that, I'm a little rough around the edges. I thought his shot looked pretty. He's knocking down some shots and the warm-ups and stuff like that, Zack. I really liked what he showed in that area at Pro Day especially. But this is a guy that he's clearly defensive-oriented, somebody that has really embraced what it means to be a, standout interior defender. And the fact that he has made it his kind of life's mission right now is to be the best shot blocker in college basketball, I think it's a pretty damn cool thing. You always like a 7-foot shot blocker that understands exactly who he is and knows what he's going to bring to the table when he steps on the court, and that's exactly who Ugonna is.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him. I'm looking forward to seeing what he produces, and like I said, I'm still not sure, even with Oscar's kind of injury, whatever you want to call it, I don't think it'll, maybe lob Ugonna some minutes early in the season, but I love his attitude. Obviously, that's exactly what you want out of a guy like him. That's a guy that definitely sounds like, hopefully wants to stick around maybe for another year, or kind of develop himself and see how it goes. So yeah, just overall, I was I've been very impressed with Ugonna. And his personality seems he's very well spoken and just knows, he doesn't say too much or too little. He knows what he's saying. He knows how to pick his words. So I just like talking to the kid so far, or listening to him at least.
Absolutely. So in terms of the other theatrics, obviously nothing to take away from the scrimmage outside of maybe, like what we talked about, the effort plays with Ugonna. Outside of that, really nothing else to even take away. So we'll move.
What else I'm trying to remember what were some of the bigger highlights during the actual scrimmage.
I really don't even know if there were any. I mean, I genuinely think it was just a full court layup line. I genuinely think that's it. So
yeah.
I don't know what else there even is to even discuss with the scrimmage portion of Big Blue Madness itself. But 3-point contest winner Antonio Reeves, it was a little kind of swaggy talk from CJ Frederick before the event started. He was like, nah, I'm the reigning 3-point contest champion. I don't need to be starting this. Somebody else can step in and start at the 3-point contest. Antonio Reeves steps in and goes, okay, I'll go in and do that, and he ends up winning the whole damn thing. I thought that was pretty cool. And then Jacob Toppin in the dunk contest, Zack, isn't even a participant. He was added in as a late addition. In fact, because Adu Thero was such a bad dunk contest participant, he took the microphone and they said, why would you, they asked Jacob, why did you step in so late? Why is this something you want to do? And Jacob said, because Adu Thero's dunk was so bad, I needed to step in and do something better than that because that was awful. So I appreciated the humor there with Jacob Toppin. A late entrant, he comes in and just wins the whole damn thing. So I thought that part was cool as well.
Yeah, Jacob's definitely quickly becoming, Oscar is obviously the face, but Jacob is kind of becoming the voice of the team, if you will. Especially right with there, he's very big on taking the mic and having fun with his friends and his teammates. And even when we were out doing the Before the Madness stuff, he was talking to all the fans, racing kids in these inflatables and stuff like that. So outside of the actual basketball stuff, I like that Jacob is really he's growing into his personality, I guess, because I know kind of early on he was a little bit of a jokester at times, is what he kind of said. So to see him off the court really taking that step as well and becoming the guy that the fans like and also his teammates as well was really cool. And I don't know why he wasn't even in the dunk contest in the first place, because he's the
Adu Thero. Come on now,
yeah,
I love the kid. We've in fact, I think a commenter brought him up. Said Tom Jackson said Adu is a real sleeper on this team. I agree. I think Adu is going to make an impact on this team. I think he's a 6'6", growing to be 6'7" guard. Kind of one of those you don't really know what he is right now, but he's going to be something special down the road. And I hope that we can kind of get some real game reps for him initially. But until then, I don't understand why he was even in the dunk contest at all, because he's clearly not that type of dunker. He's kind of an in-game dunker, high-energy guy. But Damion Collins comes in, he jumps over 3 guys. I think it was Kareem Watkins, Xavier Wheeler, and Walker Horn, maybe one of the
another
walk-ons.
dude that was under 6 feet.
Yeah, all the short guys. But it was a pretty impressive dunk. Mm-hmm. Chris Livingston, I think he does kind of a self alley-oop 360 thing, and that was a pretty cool dunk.
He did a windmill, if I recall correctly, kind of did the old, what's that called, Jack? That's like a half windmill, like a baby windmill.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. I liked it a lot, what he did, but then Jacob Toppin steps in. He didn't even have he missed all of his first dunks, Zack. and had one of the lowest scores initially, but his second dunk was just so damn impressive, kind of this baseline up and under like what you'd see in an NBA dunk contest. And that individual dunk was so much better than everything else that we saw that the crowd gave him the win. It like came down to a crowd vote, a fan vote, and the crowd just said he's clearly the winner. He had the best dunk, even if he missed all the first ones. So I thought that part was cool, but a whole lot of misses. Hamidou Diallo, who won the NBA dunk contest a couple years ago, they interviewed him before and said, "What are you looking for when you're judging these dunks?" And he said, "You just can't miss. That's the only thing you can do. You just convert your dunks, don't miss." And I think there were more misses than there were makes, Zach. So unfortunately, it just wasn't as pretty as it could have been.
Yeah, definitely not. But it's still nice to see some of those. Those were some, like, especially Toppin's dunk, were some NBA dunk contest caliber dunks that you'd see in there. So I think he just wanted to. I think he did the 3-point contest and not the dunk contest initially to kind of prove himself. Be like, look, I've really changed my game. I can shoot threes, and he definitely can. I don't think he made it to the second round, if you will, of that 3-point contest. But he
went cold late. He went very cold late.
He has a smooth jumper, and he's definitely been working on it. So it was. I like the fact that he was showing it off. But yeah, the dunk contest, that's still where his bread is buttered. And like I was saying with the fan stuff, they took Damion and who else ever, maybe Kareem or Adu, and said, who had the best dunk between these two guys? Kind of mixed results. So they said, well, how about Jacob? And the whole crowd goes crazy. So there's a lot of Jacob love so far, and he's buying into it. And just personally, I enjoy seeing that. So.
In terms of the other stuff, before the madness, you talked about a little bit of kind of the team walking in, but it was a BBNBA super class, essentially, with Hamidou Diallo we talked about. You had Kevin Knox, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Ulis, Brandon Knight. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Nick Richards, one of my favorite players of all time. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, 2012 national champion. A long, long list, Zach, of former Wildcats returned to Lexington for the first time. Clearly, you could tell that they felt right at home, that all the good memories came back. The trio of Hami, Kevin Knox, and Nick Richards, they clearly meshed immediately when they saw each other. And, it just... clearly that brotherhood and the La Familia that everybody talks about, that was clearly in effect. Clearly seeing all of those guys interact with one another.
Well, it's probably pretty easy when you play each other multiple times a year in the NBA. True. Throughout the season, you get to see each other all the time. Maybe coordinate your future Big Blue Madness visits a few months in advance. So, but it was awesome to see all three of those guys, especially those three you mentioned that were just kind of seemed to be buddy around the whole time. Those three didn't all play on the same team, did they? No. Nick Richards wasn't on that Kevin Knox team.
Yeah, he was.
Was he? So they were all together on the same team? Yeah. So it was really cool to see all them get back together and hang out like that. The actual blue carpet was cool itself. This year they cut it off to the public. Last year they had it for the public and all the
which I didn't agree with that decision.
I didn't like that at all.
I liked last year where it was kind of a fan-oriented event where because you can't honor them. I mean, again, seeing them out on the floor and on stage, they clearly got the celebration that they deserved, and that part went well. But part of it is kind of the fans going specifically to see those guys walking through the blue carpet. Think of the reaction that Nick Richards would have gotten, coming through, the fans coming up clapping for him. Oh my God, it's Nick Richards. Or Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. He had such a loud applause whenever he came through on stage. Imagine what it would have been in kind of that intimate setting. I thought that they should have had some fans there. But overall, I still appreciated the fact that they were there more than anything, and clearly a message to be sent with the recruits in the stands, and we'll definitely talk about that in just a second. Real quickly, Daniel Hager, I need to know if you guys went on the inflatable, any of the inflatables at Big Blue Madness. I didn't, Zack didn't, but he did go on the virtual reality 4D roller coaster extreme extravaganza, which looked like a blast. Zack, how was that?
Yeah, so it was like, I don't even know how to describe it. Apparently they had this whole thing in Lexington Green. Shout out to the plug there. That was free advertising for them. I don't know the name of it, but it's like this thing you sit on, and it moves with the actual VR roller coaster that you're going through. So I had the headset on, start off in this little roller coaster thing. It looks like you're 100 feet in the air. To the side of you is just endless ocean. and it literally feels like you're about to fall off. There was a point where it was taking me up to the top and then like dipping me over, and I had to hold myself back because I legitimately felt like I was going to fall forward with it and fall off the edge of this virtual map. So, and then we got to see Kareem Watkins go after, and I watched him participate in it, and then I realized how ridiculous I must have looked while I was doing it.
You did look ridiculous.
But yeah, a lot of that stuff was really fun. They had a petting zoo with alpacas. They had a donkey that had a little horn on it for some reason that looked miserable, that poor donkey.
He looked absolutely awful.
Jack actually fed some goats, a couple of those. He fed a bunch of Nick Richards, some feed. We did some inflatables. Yeah, like I said, Jacob Toppin and Xavier Wheeler multiple times were racing children in these inflatables. It was like a giant obstacle course of sorts. They said that honestly might have been the most fun for them the entire night, if you're asking me personally. That was their biggest smile. But about half the team did some autographs too, took some pictures. We saw the American Idol star Alex Miller.
Zack's personal favorite part of the whole event.
Well, I'm not a country music fan.
Shout out Alex Miller. Shout out Alex.
But it was cool to see him there. He had there was some fans there that were sitting in the little crowd watching him, giving him some props and cheering him on. So what else did they have? They had a bunch of food, some alcohol, which we sadly didn't participate in. We were on the clock, if you will.
Yeah.
What else did they have? I feel like they had some video game setups too,
yeah.
Like some Pop-A-Shot, stuff like that. You get your face painted. Jack didn't do that, unfortunately, but overall,
not a face paint guy.
The Before the Madness and the actual blue carpet, if we're being 100% honest, from my perspective, was more entertaining than the actual Big Blue Madness event itself. So if that's something that you haven't done before, they did it last year, they did it this year, so hopefully they do it again next year. I would advise to go visit stuff like that. It's just an easy way to go see the players and the team and kind of hang out and see them in their more natural habitat.
I really did appreciate the team's effort to include themselves among the fans and to interact with them, like you said, Jacob, and some of the other players, Xavier racing the fans and the inflatables, and Brennan Canada playing Pop-A-Shot, and Kareem Watkins doing the VR thing. They're clearly trying to make it a meshed event where they were clearly mingling with the fans, and every single fan came up and asked for pictures or autographs or whatever, and they couldn't have been more gracious about that, and very open to whatever interactions came their way. So I did appreciate that they wanted it to be kind of an included event where it wasn't players and then the fans separated talking at a podium or something ridiculous. They signed autographs to start with, but then clearly made an effort to be together there the tail end of the event. So I did appreciate that.
And that's why I wanted the big blue or the blue carpet thing to be open to the public, because from my fan perspective, there's a difference between seeing a player 10 feet in front of you as opposed to seeing them on the court or on the stage.
Absolutely.
That far away. So personally, I understand why a fan would want to be closer to the action like that. And I remember last year they had hundreds and hundreds of people flooding in there, just as all these UK players, the men's and women's players and the coaches just kind of funnel down, showing off everyone's wearing sunglasses inside. But to their credit, it's bright, a lot of lights in there, so I'll give them that. And they're probably all that NIL money. You can tell the NIL money is kicking in too, because those guys are wearing stuff that I will never be able to afford in 45 years. So, but the event, like that actual pregame stuff, I really do enjoy. And like I said, if that's something you haven't done, the Before the Madness stuff, and hopefully they can do the blue carpet more public next year in the future. So all the pregame stuff I was a big fan of.
A couple more things before we move on to recruiting.
Shout out to Daniel for the question, though.
Shout out to Daniel. Chris Fannin, will Damion Collins be shooting as many three-pointers during the season as he did at Madness? I hope not. But,
I hope not too.
But he's clearly somebody that's capable. I'm telling you, he was doing some stuff at Pro Day that he was the best player on the floor, like by far, and it was because of some of the jump shots he was taking. I remember back in the Bahamas, Coach Cal told the few media members there that he's doing some Kevin Durant type stuff in practice, where he's a 6'10" body, the long, ridiculous wingspan like Kevin Durant has, where he lifts for jump shots and he just keeps going up and up and up, and the defenders just can't keep going up and up with him, so he almost shoots down at the basket, Zach, and some real Kevin Durant type shots. Obviously, he's a long way to go before we even get in that even ballpark. But the type of shots that he's shooting, not a point forward or, however you want to describe Kevin Durant, clearly, but I understand some of the guard-like stuff that they're trying to get Damion Collins to do, and I think that's kind of what is going to lead him to lottery status. I think he's a first-round pick. I think he showed that at Pro Day. Not going to use anything that he showed at the Blue Whites or the Big Blue Madness scrimmage, but I like what I saw, but definitely don't want him shooting threes every time down the floor.
No, I'm not a huge fan of that either. Unless if you're a guy like him who's about 6'9" or whatever 6'10" he's listed at, if you're not shooting at least 33% from three, you better not be shooting at all, in my opinion. So I don't want him doing too much of that stuff. I want him playing above the rim, and I know Cal will have him play like that. Maybe let him. I know he showed off in the Bahamas. He's got a silky pull-up jumper now. That's something I want to see more of. I want to see him step into that 18-footer instead of stepping back for a 22-footer. But just overall, I do agree. I think there's plenty of first-round potential with Damion Collins. Interestingly enough, I think there's a little bit of Obi topping in kind of how Damion is going to project at the next level. He's got to put on the same sort of weight that Obi has, but I think he can be better than a guy like that just because his jumper is already kind of coming along, and obviously the superior athleticism. So not many threes. It also just depends. If he's playing with Oscar, I definitely don't want Damion Collins shooting any threes because then you're going to, or I guess you probably would want him shooting threes, but that's just not going to be a pairing that works. So if you put Damion by himself at the 5, maybe let him spread out just a little bit to the 18-foot range, that would be a little bit easier, I think, than if you want to spread him out to the 20 feet line, you can do that, and I think you're still going to get semi-good results inside the paint with a guy like Xavier. That's really what I'm worried about, is getting Xavier plenty of space in the middle. So it's going to be a conundrum of sorts because you're going to want a guy like Damion to shoot threes, but I don't, because I don't think he's going to make them. If that all made sense, I might have counterproduced myself there.
Tom Jackson, on that note, do you think Collins starts over Toppin? I think it's a great question. I think Toppin is the more sure thing, and I think he's going to be very productive. I think he's going to be firmly in that 13, 14 point per game range, and I do think he's going to produce. But oddly enough, as high potential as Jacob Toppin is, I think Damion Collins is even higher. They're just such different, they're kind of complementary players, and I almost would be interested in seeing, like what you talked about, seeing Damion at the 5 and then Jacob in there at the 4. The issue is Damion projects as a 4 in the NBA. If that's, he's clearly trying to show a face-up game where he's, kind of a stretch 4, knocking down 3-point shots. I think he's going to have to play alongside Oscar at times and, really just focus his time on the perimeter and in that mid-range, but it's an interesting question. Zach, who do you think starts between the two? Maybe I guess we'll start who starts at the beginning of the year and then who finishes out the year as the starting 4 for the Wildcats.
I really don't know. I was pretty much convinced it would be Jacob heading into the Bahamas. Coming out of the Bahamas, I kind of questioned myself a little bit, even though I think Jacob performed better than Damion, but Damion still showed a lot of stuff that we didn't really know of yet. So to see him kind of get there that quickly was definitely something that I didn't expect. So I would still guess that Jacob starts at the beginning just because he's got the seniority, and I think he's definitely the impact level player. I mean, if you bring Jacob off the bench, he's the sixth man of the year in the SEC. I think that's very likely, and I think that's something that they could do, that Cal would be open to doing, and then maybe closing lineups or closing games with Jacob at the 4 and Damion on the bench. So I could see it going either way. If I had to pick one right now, I would say Jacob starts the games.
Me too.
And I would still say that Jacob ends the games. But I do think that will be a conversation that's kind of had throughout the year. And there will be games where Jacob doesn't play well, a game or two, and Damion comes in and plays 30 minutes. Like I do think that'll happen, 25, 30 minutes. So those are the games that will really find out how good Damion is. But I would honestly be shocked if Jacob doesn't start over Damion. That would shock me a little bit.
Yeah, I think they're both it's gonna be kind of a similar situation with what we saw with Keon last year with Jacob, where it's gonna be one gets 25 minutes a game, the other gets 19, 20, and I think there's going to be plenty of minutes for both players, both plenty of opportunities to make a significant impact. All right, let's jump into some of the recruiting stuff, some of the big recruiting stuff. I mean, we're in a very important, crucial time. I mean, we're a month away from signing day, where it's all going to kind of come together rather quickly. And I think the one everybody's waiting for is DJ Wagner, but a significant part of that was actually happened this weekend. DJ being, he was there this weekend, and by all accounts, things went extremely well. I thought it was a tremendous gesture that Kentucky had the entire Camden team sitting front court, or basically right there, court side. DJ's dad, DeJuan, chartered a bus, as he has the last several years, Camden to Lexington. He joins the, he decides to take an unofficial visit so he can ride with his team. They have the entire team sitting courtside, DeJuan there sitting with the team, then DJ sitting with, Aaron Bradshaw and Justin Edwards, Reed Shepard, Ian Jackson, Travis Perry, the big headlining recruits. But before all of that, Zack, Aaron Bradshaw is a Kentucky Wildcat. What an absolute surprise. What a get. He has a commitment scheduled for November 16th. He randomly, out of the blue, announces that he is a Kentucky Wildcat, says that Kentucky is home for me, Lexington is home for me, which, oddly enough, he realized that Lexington was home for him without even arriving yet. He made the commitment on his way to Lexington, to the facility, so it's not even like he showed up and said, oh, hell yeah, this is what I want to be. This is a dude that just fell in love in the past, knew that Kentucky was home for him. He flirted with other schools, or other schools making a run for him. I know he was thinking about visiting Texas, thinking about visiting UCLA. USC had some stuff going on behind the scenes where they were making a push for him as well, and kind of got desperate there for a minute. All of that stuff didn't matter. He ended up deciding that Lexington was his place, was his home, and he makes it official 30 minutes before Big Blue Madness starts. Zach, your initial thoughts on that commitment?
Huge. Obviously, we touched on it on our very random, just out of the middle of nowhere podcast that we did during Big Blue Madness. But yeah, 7'1", about 210 pounds, long wingspan, great shot blocker, really expanding his game. Kind of has some, not nearly the athlete that Damion Collins is, but has some of the similar skill set that they're looking for, at least, or they have comparative skills. They like to dribble the ball a little bit. Aaron Bradshaw has a little bit of a post game too that he's been working on, or at least that I remember seeing. So he's got that in his bag too. But yeah, having him, I guess you go with your gut the first time, right? So he was gonna commit to Kentucky back in the summer, and I guess the 3 months that they took to think about it, there wasn't much to think about, or maybe that was just all the confirmation they needed, because it didn't feel like there wasn't much hype around all these other, like the Texas and the UC, like they were all mentioned, but there was never really a point where another team took a lead or anything like that. So it was always Kentucky kind of the entire way, and then you didn't exactly know which way it was going to go, or when exactly it was going to go down, even though he did drop that commitment date. But yeah, to have him pull the trigger when he did, especially, I'm sure he gave DJ a couple nice elbows to the rib as well during the actual game itself.
I mean, look, and we'll continue to dive into Aaron Bradshaw stuff, and if you guys have questions in the chat, by all means. My guy BBN MJ said major get Aaron Bradshaw. A bunch of other comments in here talking about Aaron. Look, I mean, that's a fantastic get. But it felt like everything about Big Blue Madness tied back together to DJ. We talked about the entire team sitting courtside, Camden's entire high school, with DeJuan sitting there kind of anchoring the bench. They were all there, DJ there with Aaron Bradshaw. You get Aaron to commit 30 minutes beforehand. I was told that Aaron's commitment was supposed to be Thursday as kind of a surprise, out of the blue commitment. They push it to 30 minutes before Big Blue Madness. For what reason? For that reason. Exactly. You get the Noctaballs. DJ just signs that NIL deal with Drake's sub-label with Nike, and that's kind of a late development that happened over the last couple months. UK uses the Noctaballs as the money balls for the 3-point contest. You telling me that's a coincidence? Stop it. That's insane. Then you get the "We Want DJ" chants from the student section. I think it used to be louder, and the entire crowd used to kind of embrace the "we want fill in the blank" whoever is in attendance, but I did appreciate the gesture from the fan base. They tried it, and it was loud. We heard it all the way up on the opposite side of the arena, up on press row. It was clearly heard loud and clear. We want DJ. We want DJ. I really appreciated that gesture, and he did as well. All of the talk about the former Cats in attendance. Why is Kentucky home? Why is it important? Here's La Familia. All that stuff. Everything was tied in perfectly together. I think DJ posted on his Instagram story. He had a lot of close Camden friends and family in attendance, uncles and aunts and a bunch of different guys all there. They took a big joint kind of team family picture in the UK locker room, and I mean it's like 15 people deep, 20 people deep of DJ's closest inner circle. So all things considered, look, last week he signs an official NIL deal, an official partnership sponsorship deal with Nike. Nike announced him as a Nike athlete, Zack. In the release, DJ says, I'm very excited to represent the Nike brand next season at Camden and beyond. And I think those two words are absolutely crucial. And beyond. Look, this kid is not signing with an Adidas school. We've said it on this show several times. That kid is not signing with Adidas school. He's not going to Louisville. Kentucky has all the momentum. And I would be shocked if we don't hear. I mean, he's going to be an early signing period type guy. And I would be absolutely shocked if Kentucky doesn't have this thing wrapped up sooner rather than later. And it's a very, very exciting time. Tom Jackson, when do you think DJ commits? Several other ones.
Jack's spidey senses were tingling during Big Blue Madness. He was thinking, could he commit? Could he commit right now?
It was I was the Brian Windhorse. Why would he do that? Why would they do that? Why would Cal do that? All of the things just tied together so perfectly. I was like, man, I sat over to and I leaned over to Drew Franklin. I was like, would it be a recruiting NCAA violation if he just walked out on the floor right now, took the microphone and said, I'm committing, go BBN, I'm coming? Like, would that be a violation? Or
it would have been better if Drake just came out and said, get up here, here's my OVO, bring it all full circle. Bring the whole NACTA thing together. Drake announces a commitment.
I wonder, okay, so we haven't gotten this far with NIL. If it's a paid partnership with NACTA, with Drake as the sponsor, could Drake announce him there as like an official commit of Kentucky, even though it's a UK sanctioned and promoted event?
Probably not for that reason that you just said.
But that's fascinating because he is an official paid partner with Drake. So I wonder how that, again, we're talking hypotheticals, but it's fun that we can even have these hypotheticals because it just goes to show how ridiculously far along we are in this process, that we're talking about Drake and his connection with the Kentucky program and Nike's affiliation, and now DJ Wagner's affiliation with Nike. It's like everything is this big intertwined spider web of pro Kentucky vibes. And
the Lance Ware and Kareem Watkins thing I don't think should be overlooked either. I mean, you've got two guys that are very, very, very close to DJ, and they've been there for a couple of years already, so they know exactly what to pitch. I think that's probably a little bit of an overlooked factor too.
BBN recruits only. Did you guys know he was going to commit to Kentucky last Friday? I did not at the time that I didn't, but that was clearly made for a reason, because I had heard immediately afterward that they were planning on doing the surprise commitment on Thursday, that was ready to go, ready to be announced, and they decided to push it back specifically for Big Blue Madness. I was told the people that were even like putting it out and promoting it, that they were only given like a 30-minute heads up on when it was coming and when it needed to be ready to go. So it was a very clear, tight-lipped, we are not letting anything out. We want this to be, the shock value of this to be what it was. I think the shock value is exactly what we needed it to be. He's going to commit on November 16th. It wasn't even on my radar, because when you set a commitment date like that, you're like, okay, he knows where he's going. He just, has a certain idea about what he wants to be. Where he wants to go, and I just left it at that. And then when it popped up on my phone, it was funny, Zach. We were sitting there on the big blue carpet, and it just happened by chance because I was recording all the former Wildcats coming in, and the UK basketball team had just come in and all that, and I just ended a video recording of whoever just walked in, and I just so happened to look at my phone, and the notification popped up right then. Aaron Bradshaw commits to Kentucky, and it was like a fever dream or something. It was like it didn't like my brain was like short circuiting looking at it. It was like Aaron Bradshaw commits to Kentucky, and I'm like, wait, isn't he here? Isn't he here? Isn't he about to walk in? Is this all a dream? It was fascinating how that all unfolded, and I literally tapped you on the shoulder, showed you, and I was like, I need to get my ass upstairs. And you were like, you need to get your ass upstairs. So I go up and write the commitment post real fast. Thank God I already had it pre-written from back in July when he was supposed to freaking commit, and that was a big mess and a half when that got pushed back and all that. But that was a done deal in the past. Home is where the heart is, and it's always been that for Aaron Bradshaw. Glad that he's officially on board. Very glad that
3 top 10 commits now.
Very four top 25. So yeah, fourth on the way, fifth potentially 30. You'd have 5 top 30 recruits. So yeah, we haven't really gotten your chance to talk about just what the class together means and the cohesiveness of it. What are your thoughts on where things stand, and are you liking the super class vibes that John Calipari is throwing right now?
Well, to kind of build off that before we dive into it, a lot of people are asking about Ron Holland in here. Not going to happen. I think that one's pretty much gone.
Listen, before you jump on that, Ron, UK was going to get him back on campus, and he actually reached out to UK and said that he was wanting to schedule another follow-up visit before he made an official decision. That clearly didn't happen. In fact, his mom just posted on Twitter they went to Arkansas this past weekend, and she said 5th and final trip for us before sitting down. She didn't say we're about to make a decision or whatever, but she said 5th and final trip. So there was a brief moment where UK was working to get him back on campus. He reached out and said, we would like to come back. Clearly that's not going to happen. It's that one I think is going to come down to the wire. I think Arkansas is in a really good spot. I think Texas is in a really good spot. I think it's going to be one of those two. UCLA, they were making a strong push, but I definitely think it's going to be one of Texas and Arkansas. Maybe he ends up going to the G League, and then that'd be even better for Kentucky because we wouldn't have to see him in the SEC because I am a very big fan of his. But anyway, assuming that the class is closed out, I think there was another question about Mark Tubbs. Any additional 5 stars beside DJ still available in 23? There are, but this is Kentucky's class. If and when Kentucky adds DJ Wagner, that will be the final nail in the coffin. That'll be the final commitment for that class. Assuming that's what it is, the super class. 4 top 10 recruits, a 5th in the top 25-ish. Zack, how excited are you for the group as a whole?
This is going to be a good class. We've talked many times about how the 23 class isn't necessarily as top-heavy as some of them good classes have been in the past, but as we also said in our Aaron Bradshaw little quick post, it's better to have the best of a bad class than have a bad class of a bad class. So I'm perfectly fine with what they've brought in. I really think that Justin Edwards has a lot of NBA potential. He's a guy that I've just really started to like. He's a guy that you like more and more when you watch him. Kind of the same with Aaron Bradshaw as well. And if you want to even throw in Ugo for this, to count as this freshman class, you've kind of got all your bases covered outside of like a true power forward, which, Justin Edwards and Aaron Bradshaw can both play power forward in today's basketball. So I like that they cover all their bases. I think DJ, assuming DJ comes, I still am very interested. That's the only word I'm going to use is interested to see how DJ and Rob work together, especially with a coach like Cal who, needs his point guards to kind of control things and, who's going to be the main guy there? Is it going to be an Ashton Hagens type situation where you've got 2 other guards and they all just kind of split duties type thing? I think that's a possibility, especially if Reed comes in and he's actually, as good or lives up to the billing. I still think you might want to give him a year, but those are the 2 that I'm interested to see the most of kind of how it plays out, but I'm really high on Edwards and Bradshaw. Reed has potential to be a very long-term player here that can be very, very good. So I think this is the best class of any program there's not another program in the country that has a better 23 class than Kentucky. I think we can say that pretty much with authority at this point once DJ does commit. You got like guys like A.J. Johnson and Isaiah Collier. I can't even think, is there any other 5-stars still out there other than Ron Holland? Those aren't guys that they just aren't in right now. A.J. Johnson we've talked about before. We do like him. He's a good player. But with how UK's already recruiting all these other guards, that's just not going to happen at this point.
And what I'm rooting for with A.J. Johnson, who I'm a very big fan of, what I'm rooting for is him to, kind of get Louisville fans all up in arms. And, there's all of the talk that right now he's better than DJ because Louisville fans are starting to realize that DJ's not coming. They are kind of selling themselves on A.J. Johnson. And I think he's going to end up at the G League regardless, because I think that's just kind of how things are going to unfold. I think Texas is in a good spot, but I think Louisville's in a good spot as well. It would just absolutely make my year if he, that Louisville fans kind of build up this player in their head, and kind of talk themselves into him being a superstar, and then he leads on like he's going to commit there, and then he's going to go to the G League. I think that would be just absolutely terrific. Great content here on the show, and we would definitely have a field day with that one. John P. Ryan asked, who is the leader for Carter Knox? He was on campus there as well with Ian Jackson. I think Carter is in a very unique situation because I do think that the vibes are very, very strong in Lexington. I think the relationship right now is great with his dad and with Kevin, and how things went during the first recruitment, during the first time, the first Knox during his time in Lexington. I think things went extremely, extremely well. But the only issue with that is there is a deep, deep, deep relationship with Kevin Knox, Carter I guess as well, but his dad and Kenny Payne. I think that Kenny Payne is a very, very big influence on all of their lives, and I think you would want Kevin to be more actively recruiting him to Kentucky than he is, but I think he's kind of taking a step back and going, you need to make your own decision for yourself. I trust you. I trust your process. Go make a name for yourself if you want to. You go play for Uncle Kenny if you want to down the road, or go play for, Uncle Cal, whoever you want. That he doesn't have a bad decision. I do think it'll come down to one of those two schools. If I had to guess, I do think that Kentucky ends up landing him because of just the trust factor in Cal. They know that brand is it works to a science. It's worked to perfection time and time again. It worked with Kevin, the way it has developed him for the NBA. I definitely think that Kentucky probably is, it's like a 60-40 type deal. I think this visit went very well for Kentucky, and I definitely think that it kind of pushed them a little bit. But then he's going to be at Louisville Live again this weekend. So that one's a very interesting one because of the deep Kenny Payne ties there, Zach.
Yeah, and if you're a Kentucky fan, you probably don't want Kevin Knox doing any recruiting at all, because Kenny Payne was his assistant coach in New York for 2-3 years, something like that.
Absolutely.
So there's even more of a recent relationship than with Cal. So you probably want Kevin out of it, even though he was. I'm curious to see if Kevin's going to be showed at Louisville Live or whatever they call it. Like how Kevin Knox was. So obviously you probably won't. But if I were Louisville, I would maybe think about getting Kevin Knox on the stage somehow, some way. UK fans might have a bit of a field day with that one, but
that would be.
If you're trying to recruit a guy, that would be that might be how I go about it.
Yeah. There are a couple others that Titanium Titan says, "What do y'all think of Ja'Kai Howard, and is he seriously interested?" No, don't like him.
Not very good.
Because we already have so much talent, he wouldn't get much playing time. That was a hat on the table type deal. There's no real offer there. They like him. That whole trip to Overtime Elite, Zach, was very weird because all three of them kind of sort of hinted at Kentucky offers. Jaden Williams, Ja'Kai Howard, who's the third? I can't even think off the top of it. And Nos Cunningham. All three of them kind of are claiming Kentucky offers, high Kentucky interest, and I don't really know if Kentucky loves any of the three of them. Just very unique situation. I don't think Kentucky will get any of the three, and I don't think that's that big of an issue.
The Overtime League is still very weird to me with how colleges are going to recruiting it, because they're not getting paid. They're still technically high school students. They're preserving their eligibility, what have you, but it just seems I feel like the recruitments in that are going to be fishy, especially because Overtime obviously wants them to stay with Overtime. So they're kind of separate from Kentucky going down there and sending them offers. But just in general, I'm a little bit skeptical of how things are going to go with that.
BBN recruits only. Do you think Kentucky will land Ian Jackson? it's the ultimate 23 or 24 thing. If he reclasses to 23, I think the only way he comes is if there's some wackiness that happens with Rob Dillingham or something like that. And again, there's somebody on the chat that said you've hinted a couple times about a possible decommit. I'm not saying he's going to decommit, but I'm saying
it's just something that when you think about it, you're like, how is Rob if you follow Rob really really closely, he's got a personality. He's got a very big personality. So I have no sort of inclination to believe that he would ever even decommit from Kentucky, but it's not something that would necessarily shock me.
If something wacky were to happen, I'm not expecting that to happen. I do think that he'll make it on campus. If it were to happen, I think UK would push seriously hard for a reclass for Ian. I do think that he would end up coming. If he stays 24, I think Kentucky has a very, very, very strong chance, and that's kind of what UK is rooting for. Fingers crossed. That's kind of the go-to dream scenario for him. Ian is, I think arguably their top target in 24. They love what he brings to the table on both ends of the floor. My personal favorite in the class outside of Flory Bidunga. There's another question up top about Flory Bidunga, and we most certainly will. In fact, let's just do it.
Flory fan club.
Tim or Ty M. Is there any news on Bidunga after Cal's visit? Okay. Yes, there is. Flory got the offer from Kentucky, and I talked about it on last week's show. That I confirmed it with UK, that it wasn't some fake interest offer. Like very, very serious interest on Kentucky's end. They think that they have a shot to get him. They think that they can get a very significant foot in the door. I've talked to Flory's people several times, and they are adamant that the news of the Cincinnati hiring the son of the Indiana Elite Program Director, Drew Adams. So basically, the guy the guy that helped him, one of the guys that were instrumental in getting him to the States and kind of building his brand and reputation of kind of the dominant low post presence that he is. They were adamant that's not a done deal. People can say whatever they want, analysts can say whatever they want, but they are absolutely wide open, and they wanted it pushed out there as much as possible. They're like, it's hurting Flory, it's upsetting Flory that everybody just assumes that he's a done deal at Cincinnati, that he was going to follow Drew Adams wherever he went. That's not the case. I think they have made it very clear to Kentucky that they have a significant shot in Kentucky. Like I said on the show for several times now, that if Kentucky felt they had a shot, they were going to bust through that door and make it very clear that he is their top priority in 24. I mean, he's the most dominant player in, I think, high school basketball. I think he is a surefire college star. Everything that you love about Oscar Tshiebwe is what Flory Bidunga is. If UK has a chance to get him, and as I said this on last show, he's a must-get. He is a must-get for... if he's gettable, he's a must-get, and I think that's probably the best way to put it. Zach, I know that you're a big fan of Flory as well. What would his commitment mean, and do you think Kentucky has a chance?
Oh, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I'm never going to count out Coach Cal or Kentucky in a situation like this, especially with a 5-star guy like Flory. Yeah, obviously I love him. I'm a big fan of him. I agree. I think he's the most dominant big in all of high school basketball. I think you put him in college right now, and he averages a double-double.
Absolutely.
The college game it's been a big thing this year where you've got 5 players, the 5 best players in the country since you're all big men. Well, Flory is in that exact same mold, and he's the type of guy that would come in and just dominate college basketball for 3 or 4 years with NIL, where he wouldn't, he's probably not going to be an ideal NBA player right now because he
really can't do anything outside of 5 feet.
He seriously
just
can't
being totally
make a
honest.
5-footer.
Yeah.
So, but he doesn't need it. He doesn't need it in college, or he won't. To a point at least. It just kind of depends on the team around him. But he's a guy that's just so good elsewhere that he can make impacts on the game and in pretty much every sense of it, aside from maybe clogging the paint a little bit. So that's just something that you deal with a guy like him, though. And if the bigs are really back in the modern basketball or at least college basketball, you got to go get Flory because he's going to be a guy that dominates for at least 2 years.
John Pirine asked, any more recruits visiting soon? Flory, they are in the process. So his guardian just got married this past weekend. That's part of the reason they were going to go to Big Blue Madness, but the timing just didn't work out, scheduling conflict. His guardian just got married this past weekend. So shout out to his guardian. Hope all of that went well. They're going to take some time off, kind of distance themselves from recruiting for a week or two, just kind of, let them decompress a little bit. And it's been just absolutely hectic with all the offers coming in. They've taken a couple big visits here recently, so when that dies down, Kentucky will be his first visit. They are very, very interested in Kentucky. They are excited, and had this wedding not been this past weekend, that he would have been there for Big Blue Madness. So be on the lookout for a visit from Flory in the very near future. I know Ace Bailey, he's planning a visit. He was supposed to come to Big Blue Madness, but he ended up pushing that back. That's in the process of getting scheduled. I know Dink Pate is also very, very high on Kentucky, and Kentucky's very, very high on him. That didn't work out. He is also in the process of scheduling a visit to Kentucky. As Zach said, Jasper Johnson, he was on the visit list. I think Kentucky was planning on, so he had a football game with Woodford County Friday night.
Kroger KSR game of the week.
Absolutely. They were thinking that there was a chance that Jasper would be able to get done with this football game. It would get done in time, and he would be able to make it to kind of the after party-ish, after recruiting stuff, where they'd at least be able to sit down with him. But then UK ended up just visiting him on Thursday, and there wasn't a real rush to get him over to Rupp Arena. He can visit at any time. So that visit will be happening in the very near future. But UK did get a chance to see him, talk to him on Thursday, which I think was a big visit. I do think that he's going to end up being a top 25-ish kid in that 25 class, and I do think that Kentucky will certainly be in a very, very high spot, considering the obvious family relationships and who his dad is. So plenty to like about that. Mike Flower. I think Flower. How is Shepard looking? I haven't seen him. Cal. Cool update from him. We're talking a little bit about blue-white game here in just a bit. Then we're going to wrap up the show rather quickly. Definitely not because the Celtics are about to play at 7:30 tonight. Definitely not that.
Go Tyrese Maxey.
But blue-white game is next week, this weekend in Pikeville. And little birdie told me that Reed Shepard was going to be hosting his own youth camp down in Pikeville, where after the camp is over, he will be presenting a big, significant check to flood relief efforts in Eastern Kentucky, which absolutely awesome gesture there from Reed Shepard. I was told the check could be as much as $10,000. It's going to be something that they're very proud of. This was supposed to be what was going to happen with the high-profile recruiting event that was going to happen in Lexington before that thing unfolded, and how stupid that was with the KHSAA. I can't believe that unfolded the way it did. Absolutely ridiculous on their end. Just absolutely stupid. You're going to get all the players, Flory Bidunga, Rob Dillingham, Reed Shepard, Travis Perry. I mean, unbelievable event that was going to be here in Lexington that got canceled because the KHSAA is stupid, and whatever.
The rules that they ended up arguing against a month later, saying that they were wrong. But
Absolutely nonsense. Anyway, the check that they were going to present for that, again, oh my God, this event's amazing for flood relief. We're excited to help the people that need it. They finally are going, okay, well, we have this big check that we're excited to present because of how much they need it, and we're excited, and we want to help however we can. So they finally came together with an event plan, and it's Reed Shepard's own youth camp. He's going to get some of the local school kids that are down in Pikeville, host, I think, 50-plus kids from grades, I think, 1st through 8th grade. They're in the local area. He's going to host his own youth camp, the Reed Shepard Youth Camp, teach them the ins and outs of basketball, little individual drills, and at the conclusion of it, present a $10,000 check to flood relief in Eastern Kentucky. Zack, unbelievable idea. Glad that they were able to pull it all together. No thanks to the KHSAA.
Yeah. No, it's going to be an awesome event. We're looking forward to it. I'm interested to see how Pikeville kind of sets it up and hosts it. I think they're going to do a tremendous job, honestly. Obviously, UK is involved, so they'll try and pull out all the bells and whistles. But I love the blue-white game. You want to talk about, since about 10 years old, I switched away from Big Blue Madness and went to the blue-white game if I'm trying to, really learn about the team and figure out what's going on. So add on the fact that you're going to actually get to watch the team scrimmage, plus Reed Shepherd doing this fundraiser as well. It should be a really, really fun few hours down there in good old Eastern Kentucky. The 606, I believe, is what they call it.
The good old.
I've heard once or twice.
Good old 606. Carlene Yates, Go Big Blue Nation. A bunch of good fans. This chat was popping today. I'm very, very grateful for all of the fans we have in here. A bunch of different people too.
Over. We should.
That's what I'm going through before we wrap this thing up. Real quickly, Brandon Henry, how do you think Aaron Bradshaw will fit next to Ugonna Kingsley next season? Do you believe a DJ Wagner commitment is coming shortly? We already answered the second part. Definitely yes on that. Quickly, your thoughts on that one, Aaron Bradshaw and Ugonna side by side together next year?
I hope to never see it, to be honest with you. That's only going to work if your name is Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert. So I don't really want to see those two next to each other unless one of them decides that they can start shooting three-pointers pretty consistently. So those two just probably wouldn't work together. To kind of have some similar skill sets as well. So, but I think those are great guys you can stagger.
To Aaron's credit, he is expanding his game unbelievably. I mean, I couldn't tell you how low I was on him when I left the Hoop Hall Classic a year ago. I could not have been lower on his game. I thought that he was sluggish. I thought he was clunky. I thought he didn't move very well, wasn't very fluid, wasn't very mobile. Did some things right. I thought, he was an okay shot blocker, but I could not be more, less impressed with him. The way he has grown his game, looks like he's gotten into yoga clearly and, moving better and, more athletic, knocking down three-point jump shots, doing stuff. I mean, he had a really, really impressive Peach Jam. I mean, just flat out, really, really impressive Peach Jam. Left UK thinking that there was a chance he could be a number one pick down the road. And, I think that's a little bit far-fetched for right now. But there's a reason that people are starting to have that mindset. It's because he is expanding his game and he's trying to be kind of that stretch four, 7'1" stretch four. So
if you can have one of those two guys play a power forward position or a stretch forward, you kind of do have it in Aaron. So if you want to try and make it work, you can, because that team obviously wouldn't allow any shots at the rim ever. Probably that would be an elite shot blocking team. But those would be two great guys to stagger as well, because you're never going to have a guy that can't block a shot in the game, which is going to be always huge.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be very interesting to see how Cal works it out. Me personally, like I said, unless one of them starts shooting threes, and it's interestingly enough, the 7'1" guy is the guy I'd rather have at power forward than the 6'11" guy. But that's just kind of how those skill sets play out for those two. So, like I said, me personally, I'd probably rather not see that one. But I think that's definitely something that Cal will try, because when you have options like that, it's kind of silly not to, honestly.
Jason Parrish, when will DJ commit? Already talked about that. And is there any chance he pulls a Zion and picks a school no one sees coming?
That'd be hilarious.
It would be hilarious, but no. Because also there's not another school involved that's cheating like Duke did for Zion. There's not some random house for the DJ's family that's set up for Villanova or whoever the hell else would be involved.
What would be that third mystery team, you think? Indiana?
No, I mean it'd be
Villanova?
It'd be Memphis for sure. It'd definitely be Memphis. But DJ. I mean, and thankfully the big power people in basketball are pulling DJ to Kentucky, so it's all of this is aligning for Kentucky for this one. I wouldn't sweat that one at all. TAIM, good luck to the women's team. Hopefully they can knock off some teams and surprise some folks. That was a big point of emphasis today for Kyra Elzy, actually talking about kind of just that mindset of it's going to be a power struggle there in the SEC, and she knows that they got to have a chip on their shoulder to kind of beat the big dogs in there. Freddie Maggard, enjoy, guys. Great stuff. Shout out Freddie. Appreciate you. Stephen Whitaker, can Madness just be the men's team going forward? No.
Danny men's team was boring too.
Danny Guillotine is Adu Thera, the most underrated player on the roster. Yeah, probably. I think that's fair.
Or Reeves.
Brennan Hacker, very excited for this year and next. Me as well. Tom Jackson, how do you think this class ranks in terms of Cal's teams? Chances we win a title. Definitely think there's a chance. I guess I'm not sure if he's talking about 23 in the 23-24 year, or chances we win a title this year. I think there's a very significant chance we win the title this year. Next year's class, I think it's kind of like the 2014 class, 2013 class, where it's a bunch of highly ranked guys that I don't think ended up being that good, and it took a while for them to come together, and then they ended up being very good by the end of the year. I think that's going to be kind of more quantity over quality to start with, and then they kind of develop into quality by the end of the year, if that makes sense. Definitely think there are real comparisons there. My guy BBNMJ, Cal is back. The addition of Chin and Orlando is showing it's making a major impact. Major get in Aaron Bradshaw. Completely agree. Tom Jackson Reeves is a great player. Super happy to have him. Also, Bradshaw's a great addition. Agree on both accounts. I believe Mike Flower, if we stay healthy, we will go to the Final Four with a bunch of dancing emojis and basketballs. Completely agree with that. I think we have run out of comments. I mean, goodness gracious, we had a bunch. Karen Roberts, is Reed playing tomorrow? Playing tomorrow for high school, do you know? Is that a thing?
No. The high school season doesn't start until early December.
Yeah.
So unless it's some sort of preseason thing that the KHSAA decided that he can play on that one?
Not sure.
Maybe.
All right. Brandon Henry, any update on the Kentucky-Indiana series? Yeah, that's going to be announced here shortly. That's a done deal. I think it's going to be a neutral site, home, where by the very Saturday, he will not be playing. He's just hosting the event. Sorry, Karen. I would love to see Reed in this blue-white game. That'd be pretty freaking awesome. But he won't be playing. He's just going to be hosting the youth camp beforehand. So very excited for that.
So will he be at the blue-white game then?
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. Jimmy Williams, been able to watch a live video. Hope you're doing well, Jack. Appreciate you. I think it's the same Jimmy W. Thanks for keeping us updated, fellas. Finally able to watch a live video. My guy, it's good talking to you. Good seeing you. I think that wraps up this show. Plenty of stuff. Again, thank you guys so much. There were so many comments. We couldn't even get through all of them. Keep this up. If you missed any of the other questions that you had, go back to the beginning of the show. We talked about Oscar's injury and, obviously DJ's recruitment and all that good stuff. But plenty of fun stuff here, Zach. Shout out Justice Dental. You guys are great as always. Appreciate you. Shout out Karen Roberts. It's her mom's 87th birthday. Can't wait. Hey. Shout out to you and your mom, Karen. Appreciate you tuning into us. Zach, let's get out of here. Where can fans find your work?
Well, as always, they can find me on a terrific website by the name of Kentucky Sports Radio. You can also follow me on Twitter at ZGagan, KSR. Gagan is spelled Geoghegan.
Triple G. Always. You can find me on Twitter as well, at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Reach out to me via email at jpilgrim@KentuckySportsRadio.com. With that, we'll be back next time for the Jam Packed Sources Say podcast. Go Celtics. We will see you then.
Go Cavs.